This is where our sisters were founded in Le Puy, France. These sisters had to go up and down these stairs, I bet you 4 or 5 times a day to say their prayers, because they didn't have a little chapel in their convent. When I went, I was holding on to the banister. And the last time I went, somebody drove me up the back way so I wouldn't have to go all the way up all those stairs. So those stairs are really a trick. And up and down they went. In the middle triptych, here's the sisters leaving France and going to the New World, going to St. Louis. And here in the third triptych, it's sisters throughout the world today. You can see the Eiffel Tower, France, where we started, and here's St. Louis, and different parts of the world. Now, our beginnings, 1650. I need to tell you now what was going on historically. Historically, France had been at war with England and Spain over and over and over again. The people were taxed. They were poor. Men were dead. They'd been in the war. With their widows, with their children. It was a desperate situation. And it was in this situation that our sisters were founded. And how they were founded was very practical. They saw the needs of the people. Just like today, people go to a church and they look for a handout. And same was then. The poor people would wait after Mass for the people to come out and give them a donation or give them some bread or give them something. Well, pious widows who would be going to daily Mass, they would see the needs of these people and they would come prepared. They have made soup, made bread, whatever they could to take care of the needs of the people waiting outside of church. And this priest, Father Madai, he was a Jesuit, and his job was to go around to the different parishes in southern France. And the reason he was to do that was because the parish priest was not well educated. It was the time before seminaries. The parish priest would know as much as an 8th grader would know. So the Jesuits, well educated, were sent in to educate the people. And he'd stay in a different parish, maybe 3 weeks, move to another parish 3 weeks. And at every parish he sees pious widows helping the poor after Mass. And he says to himself, I could organize those women into a religious community. And that's how, but notice how the order of things. The order of things is there was a problem, women observed it, women did something about it, and a priest came along and said, I could organize you. Oh, you get the order. Okay, that's very good. A woman could not go out in public in France at this time unless she had a man accompanying her. Otherwise, you were a loose woman, and that's not a good idea. So the women that could go out by themselves were widows. So our sisters had to get out and do some work. They didn't have any men available, so they decided we will dress like widows. And that's very much like our habit looked. It had that black veil. We wear something white here, something white around the face, and that was it. Now, this quote is very important. Whenever Father Madai mentioned the people we were going to serve, whoever they were, he called them the dear neighbor. Having your mentality move towards the neighbor, saying, these are good people. No matter who they are, no matter what they've done, my heart moves towards these people. These are my dear neighbor. I'm responsible for all of them. So he says, dedicate yourself, sisters, to serving the dear neighbor without distinction. The distinction was this. In France at this time, if you were poor, you either were poor that people thought, through your own fault, bum, lazy, and you don't deserve to be taken care of, or you're poor because of other circumstances, and not your own fault. So we take care of you. He said to the sisters, you will not act like this. You will serve everybody. You do not make distinctions whether they're poor or not poor. That's not for you to do. So serving the dear neighbor without distinction. And we do that still today. We had a woman whose name is right there, Madame de la Jacqueline. She is a rich patroness, and she likes our sisters a lot, really a whole bunch, a lot. And so she hears that the bishop wants sisters. So she writes to him and says, Bishop, I hear you're looking for sisters. I don't know why you're looking for any sisters. You want the sisters of St. Joseph. Well, he didn't write back. She wrote a letter similar to that. Didn't respond. This is the third letter. And this is only a piece of it, but you can see why he responded. She says, but Monsignor, that's what you call the bishop, perhaps you don't know who the sisters of St. Joseph are. They follow the rule of St. Augustine, and well, all sisters do, and they make final vows or perpetual vows. They devote themselves to all the works of charity. Big deal. This is a good advertisement here. So now we do that, plus we are pious. We have interior recollection. We're not gadabouts. Abnegation, self-denial, humility. And they have prayer on the one hand, and on the other hand, they have free schools, boarding schools, have large hospitals, way back in 1835, and they have homes for the aged and abandoned children. They work in the prisons, they help the poor, they care for the sick in their homes, they care for those afflicted with scurvy and other skin diseases. Even the upkeep of small dispensaries in their convents, we had little clinics in the convent. So maybe that's where we could put our little urgent care things. Manual labor, sewing, or even lace making. Their numbers do not suffice for the demand. And she says to him, and you don't want some of these? After this letter, he writes back, send me a few. And that's how he got to St. Louis. And here we go. We're going to, there we are. Wait. Now, how do we get the name St. Joseph? Well, you know, I've given these talks for a long time in the Federation, and we used to make it up. Nobody knew. We had lots of good stories. Now we really know what happened. What really happened was when Father Madai started us, he had a little problem on his hands. One was, should he tell Rome about us or should he not? And here's the reason. Up to this historical time, 1650, from the Council of Trent on to this time, women had to be in a cloister. They could not be out and about taking care of people. So he decided not to go to Rome. And he told his sisters, we're going to be a very quiet, little, unassuming organization. When you go out, I want you to live among the people, 2 or 3 people at the most. Don't be putting up any big fancy signs, no big stuff around your house. Just find out what the people need and do it and help them. But no big show. So we never did. Until a bishop came along, and the bishop liked Father Madai, and he said he liked the sisters. He said, I like what you're doing. So I'll tell you what, I'll take them under my patronage. And when he did that, we became okay with Rome. So eventually you want to be okay with Rome. Otherwise Rome will give us a little boot. So we are okay with Rome, and we still are. So when he told us we could be a community, that was October 15th, 1650. He said, sisters, I'm going to give you a job right away. Take over the orphanage. And the name of the orphanage was St. Joseph. Well, he said, that's a good idea. We'll call you Sisters of St. Joseph. So that's how that happened. Sisters are sent to Carondelet, actually a suburb of St. Louis. And that's in 1836. Now, from Carondelet, bishops would write to the Carondelet Mother House, I need sisters, send me a couple. I need sisters, send me a couple. And that's how it went. So that's how we got to Orange. A sister was sent over here to Rochester, New York. Then she was sent to Concordia, rather. Then she was sent to LaGrange, Illinois. And then from there, we come up to Orange, California. This is the first mother house they built in Eureka. Sister Patricia saw it. Probably ran around the halls in there, causing trouble. Another view of the front of the mother house, which we took down eventually. Mother Brenda wasn't up in Eureka a month and she had a school started. You know, sisters have to support themselves. So as soon as she got a school going, she had an income. And every sister who could play the piano, she would teach students. We charged $0.25 a lesson. And if you didn't know how, a sister taught you. and you were at least a lesson ahead of the kids. The sisters had to do their own garden. This is an Old Testament custom where God told the people of Israel, when you harvest your crop, think of the poor. So leave something for them to come in and glean for themselves free. This is how we got into healthcare. The 1918 flu came. When the 1918 flu came, it hit the world. And it hit Eureka. And so the Red Cross came in and said, sisters, we need your help. Close your schools. So the sisters did. They gave them little masks, some little camphor oil, some little rustic stuff. And then they went and you nursed the people in their homes. And you nursed them till they got better. And if they died, then you took care of their burial. And then you went on to another house. Now, Mother Bernard knew that this hospital was in town and that it was empty. It was empty because 2 doctors started it and went off to World War I. So they closed the hospital. Mother Bernard said to the city fathers, let us go in, we'll clean it up, and then I can bring the sickest patients in here, and the others can be taken care of in their homes. So that's what they did. The sisters cleaned it up, and then they put the sickest in there. It was very successful. The flu was over. The war was over. The doctors came home. Doctors said, we're very tired from the war. We do not want to run the hospital. We'll work on it, but we don't run it. So the city fathers beeline to Mother Bernard, will you buy the hospital? She says in 30 seconds, I'd love to, but I have no money. So within the year, 2 girls enter, and their father had given them a big redwood inheritance. So with that money, she asked them, can I buy the hospital? They said yes. She buys the hospital. So we opened our hospital, you can see here, in 1920. First hospital. When Mother Bernard wanted out of Eureka, which she always did, because there weren't enough people, she got herself down to Southern California, and she bought this property. And it's called the Burnham Estate. We still have that property. Our new mother house is on here. When we bought it, it was all orange groves. In the front, on the front of the mother house, we had a sign that said, Sun-Kissed Growers. The only fruit we ever saw was an orange. We used to tease and say, can you remember the taste of a banana? 1929, we built our first hospital down there. For those of you who know healthcare pretty well, that's the original Fullerton Hospital. That's the original St. Jude's. These are our humble beginnings. This is Texas, and this is now a restaurant. It's our humble beginnings in Texas. This is Queen of the Valley here, our humble beginnings. This is Redwood, Fortuna. Looks almost the same though. This is Santa Rosa Memorial, you'd never recognize it. Eureka, and we have a new one now. We started the health system, and in 1983, we became a health system. And when we did, one of our sisters designed this and said, we'll put one of these in every hospital. You don't find them too much anymore. They've been outdated, but it says something very important. It says that we sisters live and work to bring all people into union with God, like we just saw, and with one another. And we were told to serve their spiritual and corporal needs in all the works of mercy within our power. Within our power meant within the power of being a woman. A woman did not have the same power as a man did. She couldn't go to as many places and so on. So that's what that meant. And the other part was, which made us very attractive as a community, he said, do all the works. Normally, if I was going to found a community, I'd say, all right, now, sisters, we're going to work in hospitals. So you enter this community, you know we're going to work in hospitals. Sisters, I'm going to found you, and we're going to work in schools. Good. I'm going to found you, and we're going to do catechetical work. So you knew what you were going to do. It was really clear. But Father Madai said to us, you look around and see what the needs of the people are, and that's what you do.